What's up, positive bitches? How are we doing today? If you're hearing this episode, you are meant to be here, so keep listening. On that Bitches Positive podcast, sometimes we will laugh, other times, baby girl, we're gonna cry. But we will always walk away feeling our most empowered, positive bitch self. That is babe in true connection with herself. On this podcast, we unbecome who we are not, so we can fully step into exactly who we came to planet Earth to be. Can I get an amen? Amen. Today, we are talking about validation. Who is she? Why do we crave her? And how can we get her and give it to ourselves? That is what we're going to be talking about today. A lot of us have been trained, if not all of us have been trained to look to receive validation from others. And that is just a faulty program that we need to unlearn and rewire. Not only are we going to unlearn needing validation from others, but we're going to learn how to give that shit to ourselves, because that is what life and being connected to ourselves is truly about. We're going to talk all things validation today. But before we get into it, I have a couple of announcements to give you. If you have not yet tried Magic Mind, sis, what are you doing? Magic Mind is my little magic in a bottle. I love Magic Mind because prior to finding Magic Mind, I was using all these different pre-workouts and they were giving me crazy high highs and crazy low lows. Did I mention they were also breaking me out and I was not having it with my skin? I take Magic Mind because it gives me the perfect boost of energy while still allowing me to flow with my natural, authentic flow of energy. The magic of Magic Mind really comes down to its ingredients. It has matcha, which contains way less caffeine than coffee and these other pre-workouts. Plus, all the ingredients are really clean. We have ashwagandha, helps reduce stress and anxiety. We got a little bit of lion's mane mushrooms. Again, that helps reduce anxiety and inflammation. If you want to add a little magic to your life, you can get Magic Mind at www.magicmind.com/positive and get up to 56% off your subscription in the next 10 days with my code positive20. Your code will be forever valid for 20% off both one-time purchases and subscriptions, but in the next 10 days, it's 56% off with a subscription. That's www.magicmind.com/positive and use my code positive20. If you're not yet following me on Instagram at Vibing with Cece and at That Bitch Is Positive, follow me there where you can suggest topics for this podcast and get daily tips on how to align with your most magnetic self. If you're going through a breakup, join the 21-day Breakup Glow Up Challenge to take your power back, put yourself back on that pedestal, and of course, glow up. If you're dating or want to learn how to become the subject of your life again, you can join the Pedestal Path. Claim your pedestal and claim your life. That is what it's all about. I'm telling you, this course, it has over 4 hours of video content teaching you how to reclaim your power. You don't want to sleep on it. If you want to call your power back, but you want to get started with a workbook, you can get the Calling Your Power Back workbook. And of course, get the Healing Your Divine Feminine Energy workbook, which will also be in the show notes. Everything I mentioned will always be in the show notes. All the magical portals will be in the show notes. If you want one-on-one coaching with moi, you can hit me in the DMs at Vibin with Cece. I almost forgot my Instagram name for a second there. You can hit me in the DMs at Vibin with Cece. Again, that will be in the show notes and we can talk there about how I can help you. Okay, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Why do we crave validation? Why do we want it? What the fuck is up with validation? Let's talk about it. So here's the thing. We're born. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, mom and dad. Good job. We're born, and when we're a baby, everyone's oohing and eyeing at us. Oh my God, you're a baby. You're so cool and awesome. So naturally, we get all this attention when we're born. Everyone's obsessed. Is being a baby the ultimate form of being on your pedestal? Now that I think about it, holy shit. It totally is. When you're a baby, you literally don't have to do anything. In fact, you can cry all day, throw temper tantrums, and everyone will still be obsessed with you. Okay, I think that being a baby is the ultimate form of being on your pedestal. I mean, you get all of your needs met. You have people doting on you. and people are obsessed, always paying attention to you. Anyway, moral of the story here is that when we're a baby, everyone's oohing and eyeing at us. Everyone's giving us all this attention. Everyone is in love with us. We go to a party and everyone's like, look at my baby. And people look at you like you are Jesus Christ himself. They are obsessed. Now, something funny starts to happen, as you may have noticed about yourself, is we grow up. Oh, puberty, hi. Oh, being a teenager. Oh, being a young adult. Oh, being an adult. And people stop oohing and eyeing at us. What happened? Everyone was obsessed with me, and now they're not. Everyone was giving me that validation, and now they're not. As a toddler, we instinctively know in order to survive, we need our parent or caregiver's attention and affection to survive. We need their affection. We need their love. We need their connection. Who's going to pay the bill? Who's going to give us clothing and food? Who's going to take care of us? So we instinctively know, okay, I'm not getting the ooh and ahhing effect anymore. What do I have to do in order to get their connection, their validation, their love? And it is in that moment that we realize that validation is something we have to fight for. It is something we have to get from outside of ourselves. It is something we have to look to the external world for. When we're growing up and our parent or our coach or our teacher gives us a compliment, it raises us to the highest of highs. When they tell us we weren't good enough, we didn't do something correctly, it makes us feel terrible. We learn a program that says you have to look outside of yourself in order to get this fuzzy feeling of validation. And in fact, if you're watching on YouTube right now, I'm wearing a fuzzy sweater because today is about the fuzzy feeling of validation. That is why I'm doing that. We got the clear message. If you want to feel this fuzzy feeling, if you want to be validated, you got to look out there. You got to search for it in other people. You got to rely on others to give you this feeling. And when you get the answer wrong or you don't do what mom says or dad says, you're going to get a terrible feeling of this disapproval. Now, it's not like when we're growing up, someone is walking around saying, you're not validated. You are getting disapproved right now. No one's saying that to us, but it's not that hard for ourself as a kid to come to that conclusion anyway. Think about yourself, whether you were in sports as a kid, and I'm talking ages from 5 to 14, let's say. Think about when you were in sports or you were in the classroom. There's a reason that most kids are so afraid to raise their hand. It's because we're afraid of getting the answer wrong. It's because we don't want to feel that disapproval. We want to feel validated. We want to feel loved. We want to feel connection. And when we don't get that connection, we don't get that approval, we don't get that love, whether someone's saying it to us or not, and most times they're not, we come to the conclusion in our own head as a kid that this feeling sucks and I'm not good enough. And in order to feel good enough, I need someone outside of myself to tell me that I am. I need someone to approve me in order for me to know that I am approved. I mean, we are trained from babies throughout being a toddler, throughout being a teenager, that our approval comes outside of ourselves. Think about peer pressure. What is that about? Oh, it's about approval. It's about being validated by the people around us. We are taught to look for it, and so we never stop looking for it. But we cannot find the correct things in the wrong places. And that's where we fucked up as humanity. That's where we went wrong. We keep thinking, oh, validation's outside of me. Validation's outside of me. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can give validation to yourself. It requires, however, realizing that you're unconsciously looking for it outside of yourself. It requires coming to terms that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep getting into relationships because I need someone to validate me, because every time I do that, the relationship sucks. I can't keep looking for validation in my friendships because I never want to do what they're doing. And because I keep morphing myself to be accepted by them, I hate my life. Take it from someone who's fucking done it. I've done it. I've done it. When I was growing up, I did every sports camp, every sports team, and I hated it all. But I wanted to feel that validation from my friends. I wanted to feel that connection. But ultimately, it sucked. I hated every second of it. I prayed every game would be rained out. I literally remember, this is probably how my connection with God started. I would just pray that every game would be rained out. I was like, please, God, just don't make us play today. I really don't want to do it. It's something we all do. So reflect on it. Think about it. What are things that I may be doing subconsciously to get validation from my friends, from my family, from my partner that I don't want to fucking do anymore? What am I praying doesn't happen so that I don't have to freaking do it? Maybe I'm not doing it for the right reasons. Now, here's something else that can happen, which is an extra added layer. I recently got a massage and oh my God, it was amazing. Okay. It was amazing. And at the end of the massage, she was stretching out my neck and she was doing this amazing, I literally told her while I was getting the massage, I was like, I'm just thinking about how you have magic hands. Thank you so much. At the end of the massage, she's doing this thing on my neck. I start hysterically crying. Yep. In the middle of the massage, or at the end, I guess, I started to hysterically cry. And she's probably thinking like, am I hurting her? Like, what the fuck? Oh, by the way, this is a couples massage. So my partner was also there and he looks over and I'm like, I'm crying. He was like, Cece, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? Like, did she hurt you? Like, what's going on? He's like ready to defend me. I'm like, no. She didn't hurt me. It was fucking amazing. She didn't hurt me. I go, I just released something that I've been holding in my neck. And I've realized this before because one time I had I don't know what to call it, a disagreement with my mother. And I was screaming at her. I was like, you never hear me. Something along those lines of like, you never hear me. You never hear me. And during this massage, when I started to cry, I just realized I was like, I've just for so long have felt the need to be heard. Like I felt for so long that the things I was saying wasn't getting through to people. The true intentions behind what I was doing wasn't getting through to people. That for so long I would have to walk on eggshells because I couldn't make people with louder personalities upset because then it would be really freaking embarrassing. Like I've had, you know that when you go to a restaurant and there's like that one family that's just like fighting really loudly? That's my family. Hi, nice to meet you. Like that's my family. And so for so long, I would just not say anything because I was so afraid I was going to trigger someone. And it's just my siblings, whatever, so afraid I was going to trigger someone. And it would be so embarrassing that everyone had to look at my family always being the ones fighting. I'm like, ugh, it's embarrassing. Like regardless of how confident you are, especially as like a kid and growing up, that's really embarrassing. And I even remember thinking like, and I always had people, my close friends at my house. Like I had a best friend who I always had at my house because she had a similar situation growing up. But every morning my alarm clock was essentially people fighting in my house. And I was like, oh, just ignore that, and like slammed my door shut. But for such a long time, because people were so loud, I didn't feel heard. And it's like you forget your own inner child wounds as you start to grow up because there's just so many things in your 3D world going on. You have a job, you have school, you have your internship, you have your friends, and you go unconscious. And something in this massage, whatever she hit, I guess my neck was holding on to emotions, which I know because I have a thing with my thyroid. And I just cried and released it, and it felt so good. The need to feel heard, that is also a need for validation. And I think we don't really talk about that. There are needs of being understood. And that one I feel like I've gotten the best handle on. The need to be heard, that one I feel like I am currently working on through subconscious healing and inner child healing. And the need to be seen, the need to be loved, the need for connection, the need for validation, of course, which is what we're really talking about today. To me, these are all one and the same. the need for you to be understood is really similar to you needing validation. The need for you to be heard is really similar for you needing validation. And for such a long time, I was thinking that in order to be heard, that's not needing validation. That's different. Like needing to be heard, I need that other person to see where I'm coming from, and I need them to hear me. I need them to hear my words, because for so long I felt like I haven't been heard. And what I realized in that moment, what God really showed me is that, Cece, I am God, and I've always heard you. I've always heard you. I've heard every prayer. I've heard every cry. I've heard every scream. I've heard every hurt. I've heard every celebration. I've heard every intention. And in that moment, and it makes me emotional now, because not only has God and my spirit team always been there for me, always have heard me throughout everything, but God also showed me, and Cece, you know who else heard you? You did. You did. And that's what matters. That's what truly matters. You hearing yourself. Because when you give yourself validation, when you hear yourself out, when you understand you don't need it from those other people. You feel confident. You feel fulfilled. You feel free. God is always going to be there for us, always validating our experience, because we made a contract with God about this experience. God is always going to be there with us. And I feel like I need to take a side note here before we really get into the validation stuff to talk about God. I know God can be a tricky subject for a lot of people, because some people literally have trauma with the church and with the word God. I understand that. I want to take a side note here and just say, the way I truly connected to God was by screaming at him. When my mom dragged me to a chapel, because I was just crying every single day. She's like, bitch, we got to get you to the chapel. Crying and screaming at God. I feel lost. I don't know what's going on. That was me. That was me. Just screaming and cursing. Probably not the best thing to do. But I was just losing my shit, okay? That's how I felt. I just encourage you, if that's how you're feeling, talk to God. Because after my mom dragged me to the chapel, within 2 days, I believe it was 2 days, it was definitely the same week, 2 days, I got my answers. My whole entire life shifted. And then I was like, oh shit, damn, God really does exist. Like, you don't need to hear me preach about God. I'm not going to convince you God exists. I can't. I couldn't convince you if I tried. But all I encourage you to do is to find your conviction through yourself. Talk to God. Tell God what's going on. Tell your spirit team what's going on. Your angels. They will respond to you. It's just funny because I always felt like really misunderstood, growing up, and like my intentions were not heard clearly. But you know who always understood me? God. You know who always answers me? God. I don't always get an answer from, a long lost friend, or I didn't get the connections I wanted really growing up. I lost a lot of people who I used to be close with. You know who stayed? God. So I just have a side note of saying, you don't need to believe me. I'm not going to try to convince you. That's a waste of my time and your time. I just encourage you, start screaming at God. Start screaming out, okay? Because God will hear you. You'll get your answers. Your life is going to change. It just will. Okay, anyway, back to needing validation. So what I realized in this moment is not only did God always hear me, my angels always hear me, but there was me. There was me. I have always heard myself. I've always known what I've intended to do. I've always known how I've felt. So if someone is going to stand up for me, if someone's going to hear me, it's got to be me. Now, what I was doing is I would hear my true intentions. I would hear, oh, Cece, I don't actually want to do these sports, but I would ignore my own feelings. I would ignore my own thoughts. I would ignore my own desires because I valued getting other people's validation more than I valued being happy. I have always heard myself, but I have not always listened to myself. And there's the difference. I've always heard what I've truly wanted, what I truly desired, what I truly intended. But I let all of that pass by my wayside, and I valued how other people were perceiving me more because I valued getting that fuzzy warm feeling outside of myself more than I valued getting it from myself. I didn't realize how much happier I could be if I just started listening to myself. And that's why I'm here to tell you, you got to start listening to yourself. I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. There was one time when I was doing intermittent fasting, and for whatever reason, it turned to be like 5 p.m. and the day got away from me. I didn't get to eat. I was out all day. I ran to the supermarket to get food, and I just started buying everything. Things I was allergic to, things I would never eat, things that were gluten. I think I was vegan at the time. I was probably buying things unvegan. I was just buying everything. When I got home and I looked at what I bought, I thought to myself, why did I spend money on this? What was I thinking? Why would I buy this food I'm literally not going to eat? I was so crazed, so starving for something outside of myself, this food, that when I got to the grocery store, I lowered my boundaries. I lowered my values. I forgot all of my core beliefs and I just bought everything. Now apply this to energy. When we are starving for validation, for love, for connection, we will drop our boundaries, our standards, our needs, our requirements, our beliefs, our everything. We will drop it all because we're so hungry for that thing outside of ourselves. If I would have fed myself food that day, I wouldn't have been so hungry, and I wouldn't have dropped my boundaries and my standards, and I wouldn't have let in a bunch of shit that I didn't actually want. When we give ourselves validation, love, we acknowledge ourselves, we're not going to be starving for all of those things outside of ourselves because we're already feeding ourselves. We're already taking care of ourselves. Think about on an airplane. Who do you have to put the oxygen mask on first? You. You have to take care of yourself first before you start taking care of other people, before you even allow your attention to go to other people. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to be happy. And I think we all know a martyr in our life, and we know that their happiness of helping others is very fucking fleeting. We know that their happiness is very unstable because it's all reliant on that other person. We know that martyrdom is not the way. The pedestal path is the way. And if you want to learn more about placing yourself on the pedestal, join the pedestal path course. Now, how can we start to give ourselves this validation? Because we know we've been trained to look at it from outside of ourselves and try to get it. We know that that feeling sucks. So how can we start to revamp our relationship to validation? How can we start to feed ourselves? The first thing is the easiest thing. It's just an affirmation I'm going to give you. And what it is I release the need for validation from others, or I release the need for external validation. You might not know the exact incident or circumstance that has caused you to need validation from others. When you use the affirmation, I release the need for external validation, you don't have to know the cause. You don't need to know the root. The mantra will take care of that for you. So the first thing is just using the affirmation, I release the need for external validation. And that's going to start helping you energetically and subconsciously releasing that hunger, that starvation for this feeling outside of yourself. Now, I want you to do a visualization with me, okay? If you're driving, keep your eyes open. If you're doing a workout, obviously keep your eyes open. But if you can take a pause from what you're doing right now and you can close your eyes, I invite you to close your eyes for this exercise. I want you to just take a deep breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. And I want you to just visualize your younger self a couple of feet in front of you. Look at your big, beautiful eyes. You can see your pure innocence. Whatever age you want to imagine, just you as your younger self. And you can see that your younger self has so much positive energy and has so much excitement about the world and has so much awe and wonder about all the beautiful things that can unfold for them. And I want you to just introduce yourself as your adult self right now. Tell them who you are. And now I want you to tell your younger self something you have accomplished, something that you did that you know your younger self would be so proud of. I want you to tell your younger self a win that you've had, whether it was getting the promotion or getting a new job or getting into college, or even you got up today and you cooked yourself a really good meal. I want you to express this to your younger self. See how your younger self is so happy for you. Their eyes grow even wider, even bigger. They're looking up at you like you are a mega superstar. They're looking up at you in pure happiness. They're looking up at you like you are the end all and be all. And embrace this younger version of yourself. Give them a hug. Celebrate your win. And I want you to realize in this moment how proud of yourself you truly are. How proud of yourself you really are. How much you can actually validate yourself. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes. That feeling that you just felt, you can give to yourself at any time of the day. You can give to yourself every day. What we just did is we proved to ourselves that we are capable of giving ourselves validation. What we just did is prove to ourselves that we are capable of filling up our own cup and it feeling good. What we just did is realize that we can celebrate ourselves and we're actually fucking proud of the accomplishments that we have created in our life. If you liked that exercise, I invite you to, after this podcast, maybe tonight or tomorrow, write a letter to your inner child and make them a list of all the positive things or changes that you've made in your life. Maybe you have let in one toxic person after the other. Tell your inner child, your younger self, how you just broke that habit. You started listening to That Bitch Is Positive and suddenly you're a positive bitch. Tell them about all the things that you have accomplished. Connect with them. A lot of the programming we have comes from our inner child, from our younger self. So if we go straight to the root and make that connection with our inner child, we're going to make a lot of changes really quickly. Really quickly. Now, here are some quick tips that you can use to start validating yourself. I've talked about this before, but when you make a mistake, it's so easy to just jump to all the criticisms that you've heard about yourself growing up. If you make a mistake, it's so easy to say, "Oh, I'm so stupid." But you were not born feeling stupid. You were not born believing you were stupid. You were born being all loving, all confident, all magnetic. So thinking that you're stupid, well, that's a learned behavior. Your inner critic, how was that inner critic created? Your inner critic was created from the external critics you had around you growing up. And those external criticisms have been internalized and now they're on replay 24/7. Now, this is up to you. Do you want your external critics from your past to control your current lifestyle, your current success? Do you want the people who have hurt you in your past to still have control over you today? I think not. So the first step to really taking our power back, or maybe not the first step because we already talked about two, but the third step that we're going to talk about is working alongside your inner critic and healing your inner critic to the light. How do we heal our inner critic? We start to engage with our inner critic, because anything we run from will chase us. We're not going to run from our darkness. We're not going to be in denial of our darkness. We're going to communicate with our darkness. We're going to dance with our darkness. So when your inner critic starts to chirp away, instead of you agreeing with your internal critic and identifying with your internal critic and thinking that you are your internal critic, we're going to create some separation. We're going to create some room between what you're thinking and who you are, because you are not your thoughts, and you're certainly not your negative thoughts. Those criticisms are not yours. So why are you believing them? Don't let someone else's projection become your prediction. It's time to release ourselves from these external criticisms that we don't even really believe. They just happen to be on autoplay because that is how our brain works. So what you're going to do the next time you hear your inner critic, first of all, we're going to name them. I name mine Sheila. Anytime I hear mine talking bad about me, I'm like, Sheila, girl, you are funny, but I'm not letting you bring me down today. I don't care if you call your negative thoughts the devil, Sheila, Santa Claus. I don't care. But I need you to start realizing that this inner roommate, these thoughts are not you. The first step of moving away from our negative thoughts is to realize that they are not us and we are not them. Depersonalize these thoughts. That's it. That's it. We're going to unconnect with these thoughts. We're going to unconnect from thinking that they're ours and us, because they're not. So what do you want to name your inner critic? Now, when your inner critic comes up and starts talking to you, the second part of this is, instead of agreeing with your inner critic or being like, oh yeah, I am such a dumb bitch, instead of doing that, what you're going to do is say, oh, that's so silly. That's silly. When we get annoyed or upset or angry at ourselves, there's going to be this surge of energy. Now, today, I don't like loud noises, and when there's a vacuum going off or like a really loud noise when I'm trying to do something, it makes my brain do just weird things. Like I can't. So there was that happening today where I was trying to eat my food in peace, and there was a really loud noise going off, and it was driving me cray. And instead of allowing myself to get upset, now I didn't have like a negative thought of hatred towards myself, but instead of allowing myself to get upset, I started laughing. I was like, of course this is happening the second I eat my food. Like, of course, when I need peace the most to digest, of course the loud noise happens. And I laughed about it. So whether you're having a surge of negative energy, thoughts about yourself, or a surge of angriness surging through your body, because that was literally me today, laugh it off. Laugh it off. Laughter is truly the best medicine. I cannot recommend enough watching a comedy before you go to bed. If you're a reader, go off and read. But to put me to sleep, I like to watch something, and I've been watching The Mindy Project. Oh my God. What an amazing freaking show. You got to watch The Mindy Project. Anyway. And I started watching Love is Blind too, which is just always making me laugh. And of course, Married at First Sight Australia, another one of my faves. If you don't know, I went to school and part of my major was film and television. So I am I love some TV programs like the news. I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that. But I love reality television. I love all that stuff. And you never know, maybe I will create a reality show myself one day. Of course, it will have healing and positive programs in it. But anyway, if you're like, that's so weird that you watch all this TV. Well, I fucking love it. And I came here to be human, so I'm going to keep doing it. Anyway, so we're going to laugh off the inner critic. And when you laugh at your inner critic, you don't give it control over you. If my inner critic starts going off and I believe it, well, now those past critics have control over me. Well, now that inner critic has control over me too. But if I laugh it off, sis, what? No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. That puts the control back into my hands. Now, I'm not going to laugh it off and be like, I'm so stupid. No, I'm going to be like, ha, 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 silly me. Oh, Sheila, you're really on one today, but try to get me again because you can't. You can't. I won. CC won, Sheila 0. Okay? And you're just going to laugh it off. Funny, Sheila. Funny you thought you could try me today. Failed. I'm winning. I don't believe it. Even if, so my cousin the other day, I said something and we were talking about something. She's like, yeah, no, I won't subscribe to that. I love that. So if you have a negative thought about yourself, where you think you need validation from someone or you're starving yourself from validation, just be like, I don't subscribe to that thought. I don't claim that thought. I don't subscribe to this negative programming that I need other people to validate me. I don't subscribe to this negative programming of feeling not good about myself. I unsubscribe and just unsubscribe from it. I just thought that was so funny. Now, how do we start to validate ourselves? There are so many ways. You can celebrate your big and little wins. Whether it's making a cup of tea or you got promoted, celebrate it. Your self-talk is so important because it's what you hear 24/7. Celebrate your big and little wins. Another thing you can do is literally have affirmations and put them somewhere you're going to see them every single day, whether it's the back of your phone or on the wall. I feel like, where should I put my affirmations? I put them inside my mirror, where I go to open my mirror every single day to get my toothpaste. And then I put my affirmations on my phone. I have widgets and there's affirmations there. Your affirmations won't work unless you're working them. Put them in places where you are going to see them. How else can you validate yourself? When you're feeling a negative emotion, let it the fuck out. For most of my life, I've been told I'm too sensitive, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, okay? So I used to think that I had to shove down my emotions. I used to cover my face when I would cry. I used to pretend like I didn't feel anything. Look, pretending like you have no emotions is not a flex. It's a sign you have a lot of trauma, okay? When you want to validate yourself, the best way to validate yourself is to allow yourself a safe space to let your emotions out. How can you let your emotions out? Journal about them. Cry about them. If you're having trouble evoking your own emotions, this is something I say in the 21-day Breakup Glow Up Challenge. Watch reality dating television. There is bound to be someone who's going to cry and have a mental break, not down, but through. You will cry with them. Or put on a sad movie and cry with the movie. If you don't know how to evoke your own emotions, put something on that's going to make you cry and let it out. Let it out. I will set aside 25, 45 minutes for me to just cry, journal about my emotions and let it out. And then I feel so much better. It's like oiling the wheel. You just got to let that water out, because so many people think I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Your crying is what allows you to feel better. It's alchemizing your pain into power. Let it be there. Let it be there. Another amazing way to validate yourself is to find a strain that serves you. And every time you find this strain, so maybe it's working out, finding a strain that serves you. I say it a lot, so I assume you know what I'm talking about, but I should explain. Finding a strain that serves you means you choose something that's not the easiest for you to do, but you do it anyway. So maybe it's running or walking or creating a TikTok every single day or reading a book or learning quantum physics. And you engage with that difficult behavior and you prove to yourself, wow, I am more powerful than I thought. That's another amazing way to validate yourself. I'm all about living a soft life, but I truly believe that there are certain seasons that you're going to have to fight, and there's certain seasons that you have to flow. So find something to fight for and make that fight for you. Make that fight for you. What is something I can fight for? I can fight to validate myself. What can I choose that's going to be a strain to serve me? And how can I start weaving that into my weekly schedule? I promise you, it's going to change how you see yourself. It's going to change how you feel about yourself. It's going to change your life. Now, I feel that a huge part of me validating me has been just talking to God and creating space for me to talk to God. Now, if you like your traditional prayers, do your traditional prayers. For me, I like to just talk to God and create space for conversation with the divine. And I think that a lot of us might be good at talking, but I don't know how good we are at listening. If you want to start to validate yourself, create space to not only hear yourself through meditation, but to hear the divine. I love my prayers. Prayers is talking. Prayers is asking. Meditation is when you receive. I want you to start creating space where you put on a healing frequency and you just listen to yourself. You just let divine inspiration channel through your body. Maybe God has a message for you. Your spirit guides have a message for you. Or maybe your subconscious mind has a message for you. But you can't validate you. You can't hear you if you don't create space to listen. I had to go to this massage and have 50 minutes of silence for her to do something to my neck and for me to hear something that I wasn't listening to. Because like I said, we can always hear ourselves, but it doesn't mean we're listening. You have to create space to hear yourself. And then step 2 is listening to your true desires. Act on them. If you really hate sports, stop playing them. If you want to build up trust and validation with yourself, you can't just be like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. No, you need to create space to hear yourself. And then you need to actually listen to what it is you're saying. If you feel like going out and blacking out every single weekend isn't serving you anymore, I don't want you to just hear that. I need you to listen. I need you to sit in meditation and hear what it is you need to do next. Because I can guide you, but I can't tell you everything exactly that you need for your path. That's your job. That's your job to find that out. So I want you, in order to start validating yourself, is to not only hear yourself, but create space to listen and act on it and start following your true, authentic vibration. I think that if you are into prayer, an amazing thing you can do, the specific way to pray about this is to ask God to change your heart's desires. Ask God, change my heart's desire. Instead of me needing or feeling like I need people to validate me outside of myself, God, show me how to validate me. Change my heart's desire that I don't even care about their validation anymore. Change my heart's desire so that I only care about me validating me. Ask God to change your heart. There have been things that I'm like, I am so dead set on. And then God changes my heart and I'm like, and a girl did not care anymore. Ask God to change your heart and you will be shook at the results. If this podcast resonated with you, please share it with a friend or a family member. You never know who may need to learn how to validate themselves. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow me at Vibing with Cece so you can suggest topics for this very podcast. Right now, I want spooky topics for the month of October. You know, every October we do a spooky subject. And by spooky, we talk about negative energy, entities, etc. But what do you want to hear about? Let me know. The Sparkle in Me honors the sparkle in you, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah.